Shakespeare once said all the world's a stage, but he didn't tell us how to get there. This is Steps to the Stage, a 7th Street Theater podcast. I'm your host, Colin Pinedo, and let's get the show going.
Thank you, places!
Folks at home, do you have a business, small or otherwise, that isn't pulling in traffic the way you want it to? Well, it might be because they don't have something to remember you by. And that's why today we are sponsored by Graphic Details Inc., signs and displays. They will print out your banners, they'll cut vinyl, they'll do window graphics for the company cars. We're talking business cards, banner stands, LCD displays, tabletop displays, logos, all in full living color. Again, that is Graphic Details Inc. here in Chino, California. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Steps to the Stage. And we are taking a bit of a turn here in that me, producer Kirk, is going to be taking on the host roles from and I don't even know how I'm going to fill these shoes, Colin, so you might have to help me out along the way. But Colin P., who is our host, is actually a guest today. And he is here along with our good friends, Joey, who is our engineer, but who's also cast in our upcoming 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee production that's directed by Mr. Caleb, who is here and a long-time actor and has helped out at this theater in so many different ways for so many years, but is here. And if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be his directorial debut.
Yep.
Is that so? Yep. Let me just start off with a welcome back.
It's great to be back.
Oh my goodness, you guys, this has been such an incredible journey. And having this podcast for going on now 2 years. We just celebrated our second anniversary a few days ago. Yes. And this has been definitely a labor of love, as we all talked about, starting off as kind of a mentoring project. And now it's something that we want to put out there for the community theater world. And we've done our research, and there's not a lot of mediums for these types of conversations. And we've had a fantastic time, not only with our children's theater, which is CCCT, Chino Children's Community Theater, but we've also this season included CCT, which is just Chino Community Theater, or as we call it, the adult program. And then there's the children's program or the kids program. And so we've also had a number of the directors that have come on and spoken to Colin about their productions. And that's been so much fun. But this one is really special for us at Steps to the Stage because, again, we have our host, Colin, who is assistant directing, and then obviously Joey, who is our engineer and producer, who is been cast in the play. So at this point, Caleb, I'm going to turn it over to you. And I just want to hear about you and your journey to this point, and then we'll get into the weeds a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. Like you said, I started when I was 8 at Chino Children's Community Theater, and my first show, Doo-Wop Red Riding Hood, which was like a 50s Little Red Riding Hood. And I've done probably over 20 shows at the theater between the ages of 8 and now, in various roles from ensemble to lead roles and anything and everything in between. I learned a lot in sound design and microphone technician. With Paul, we sort of dove into that space together.
Paul Larson, one of the founding members of our theater, yes.
Yeah, so I learned a lot about that from Paul. We dove into that pretty heavily in Jesse Larson's production of Hairspray. And then I also learned a lot about tech with Kevin Gassio, who's now gone on to teach musical theater at NYU.
Wow.
So very blessed to have had all these mentors. Joey's mom, Donna, is a fantastic mentor, not only just of theater, but of
As a person.
as a person. I mean, life. I mean, come on.
Yep. Yeah, Joey, we love the Rice family, all the members, and then some. And specifically, we love again the mentoring and just the energy and love that they bring to everyone that comes into their circle. So sorry to interrupt, Caleb, but
No,
I do
absolutely.
need to speak up on that. And I get the fortune. We have a Saturday morning breakfast dads meeting, and Bill Rice is a part of that, along with Paul Larson and several other theater dads. And I know Donna is very much involved in various things that my girls are involved in, and my wife as well. And we're just so lucky. And I want to shine the spotlight on them for a second because they so deserve it. But Caleb, please continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I fully agree. I mean, I could not praise their family enough. And then, I had a little bit of a departure from theater my senior year of high school. And I really dove into vocal music and particularly classical choir, jazz, and a little bit of composition and music theory. And so I've been sort of focused in that space for a couple of years. And now this past year and this upcoming year, I have been student directing and conducting the Mount Sac Chamber Singers, which is a highly awarded choral group
program.
And,
at Mount Sac.
At Mount Sac, which is it's fantastic. I mean, it's a community college, and the director there, Bruce Rogers, is truly something special because he's taken this community college and made it a world known choral group. And so I've had a wealth and just a seemingly never-ending stream of opportunities to learn from him. And so now I'm coming back with a lot of, quite large stage experience. We've done, performances at Carnegie Hall. We've done premiered pieces by Jacob Collier and all sorts of things. We performed at the National Action Network Conference for Al Sharpton and families of police violence. We've done all sorts of things, and now I felt like it was time for me to take all these experiences and this knowledge that I've gained and to bring it back and, sort of hand it off as, Donna and Jesse and Paul and Kevin had done to me. So, that's sort of a brief overview.
I love that. And for context for those that are listening, we're so lucky in our area, not only obviously to have this theater and the amazing mentors, but our high schools in the area actually have some pretty solid arts programs. And specifically, the three gentlemen that you're seeing here are all graduates of Ayala High School. They're also graduates of the choral program that's run by Mr. Robert Davis. And I speak very highly of it in two manners. My daughter's in it, and I just recently was voted in as the president of the Booster Club, which was the role that Donna had prior. So our involvement in the arts goes, into that choral area as well, Caleb. And I love that you brought that up because I think, especially looking at the three that are on this call outside of myself and the experience you guys have gained, not only as vocal performers, but just in life. I've been fortunate enough to travel with the choir program to New Orleans, and we went to New York this past year. And I know both Colin and Joey have been on some great adventures, competitions. And as you mentioned, to an extent, very, very well renowned competitions. And Ayala goes in and does a fantastic job and is awarded sweepstakes and the highest honors at all of these venues and competitions. And again, that experience you guys gaining and then bringing it back to the theater, I love that. Tell me about the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee specifically. Why? And I want to know more about its history with you and then what you're trying to create with it.
Yeah, of course. So I guess I'll start with the why. Last spring when I was sort of considering what shows I would be interested directing, what I was going to submit as a big part of that for me is the music and is the score and the composition of the score. And so I spent a lot of time with several shows, ranging from some pretty heavy, social commentary dramas like Ragtime to, love stories in Once on This Island to these sort of adolescent comedic stories like 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. And one of the things that I really like about the show is that it has a certain breadth to the musical styles present and this sort of fusion between like musical theater, but then it also brings in a lot of, sort of like jazzy, chromatic and sort of tight chords that are really quite complex. And so there's a lot of challenge to the show musically, but then it also provides this opportunity to challenge, for the moments when there aren't music, to challenge the actors into that interaction with the audience and the heavy improvisation in the dialogue of the show. If you look at the script, there's a lot of times where there's paragraphs marked and it's like improv whatever is fitting for that particular performance. And so I thought it would be a really great show to allow me to impart as much knowledge and push the cast and to teach them about a lot of different ranging topics, from the voice and how to really take music, learn it, digest it, and then also how to take these characters, which have sort of this historical representation, but then give them a new interpretation to work with. So one of the things that people will notice when they see our set is that it won't look like most any spelling bee set you've ever seen before, and a lot of the characters won't look how you think they might look. And so I just, the nature of the show, it allows for a lot of flexibility that I could sort of bend and not break the show, and really challenge and teach the cast a lot about what it means to tell a story and how to do that.
And so those that are listening to this obviously know there's a lot that goes into a production, but you're talking about a production that's fairly well known within the community theater. And you're talking about taking some, we'll call them liberties, to push your message across, and it being, again, your debut here at 7th Street Theater. Sounds like a big task. And I feel like there's someone you've asked to come along this ride that's on this call with us. I'd love to hear about the decision to bring Mr. Colin P. into your team.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the reason that I decided on having an assistant director as opposed to having a couple, student positions like a, student music director or student director is, one of the things that I have with choir is I'll actually be gone for half a month, the first 2 weeks of July, to compete with choir in Austria. So
Wow.
I knew that I needed somebody that could step in after all the music and the choreography is learned, and who really understands character and comedy and comedic timing, to work with them, the principles of the show with that improv, that comedic aspect, how to do comedy, how to do it at the right times and in the right way. And so I sat for a while. I called several people. I talked to Donna Rice. I talked to Debbie Barbin and all sorts of wonderful people. And one person that they always brought up when I sort of explained to them what I was looking for was Colin. And the thing that sold me on it was I had seen Colin perform at his at Fullerton JC's Hunchback, and
wasn't that an amazing production? Sorry, I'm biased.
Absolutely, and it's one of my favorite shows, and they did an absolutely phenomenal job with it. And so I knew that if I left for 2 weeks and the show was in Colin's hand, and really the character building portion of the show, that it was going to turn out exactly how I would want it to, because he really does understand character and how to develop them. It was his turn to get that opportunity to work in the creative production side, as opposed to just working on his own character. So
we're thankful for that. Believe me, we're very thankful for that, because we love that many people are singing the praises of Colin. And I'm enjoying watching him squirm a little bit as you speak highly of him, and the other pillars of our theater speaking highly of him. So you're not going to get any arguments out of us about that choice, but for you to be detailed in really the thought of it, and not just, oh, he's a great person. You really put some thought into, hey, this is a production that has my name on it. And so everything that goes into it, I need to have full faith and confidence. And pretty cool that Colin was available, but not only available, but willing. And so with that, Colin, I'd love to get some of your insights on this process, where you're at, your relationship with Caleb in this, and your relationship with the actual production itself.
I mean, honestly, that just kind of made me feel a lot better about being here and having those 2 weeks to really dive into the comedy of it. Because in terms of Spelling Bee, I love William Finn and his music so much. One of the other musicals he's written called Falsettos is like an all-time adoration of mine. It is just so, but it's just so beautifully written and so dense. And so I'm so happy to be able to work on a William Finn musical in this way. Caleb, we've known each other for a while at this point, right? Because in my first show, we did that together, Pinocchio, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And we were talking about, Debbie, like, I remember you with the big curly black wig and the beard and everything. So yeah, it's really cool to be able to work with you and to work with Sarah, who I was underneath on West Side Story. It's been really fun to be able to work with you guys in this manner on something. Yeah.
And you've recently helped out with a couple of productions that have happened at the theater, right? Colin, remind us of what those were in that experience.
I helped Donna in the assistant director side with Alice in Wonderland, and I've been kind of catching the bug a little bit. The directing side and that creative side is actually really fun for me. I've been really enjoying it, and seeing what I can actually do in that space, I think, has been very rewarding.
I think there's some similarities. I come from growing up in a sports background with soccer, right? And so I was a player, and then our high school coach made us referee. So I learned how to referee when I was in high school. And then after I played for a longer, I became a coach. So having that experience as a player, coach, and a referee, I think helped with all three areas. And I think in the theater world and in acting in general, in those roles, that there, in some some can do it and some can't. But I think having those experiences definitely can help you grow and be prepared for situations like this. The thing that and I'm saying this as a mentor and as a father and just a lover of theater. What I'm loving here is I'm looking at 3 individuals that have been involved in this theater for so long, and you've been involved in different areas, whether it's tech or whether it's acting or directing or anything else. And now you get to the point where you're taking on your own productions and you're bringing in the people that you were with growing up, and they're talking about, yeah, this is something that I might be able to do. And so I'm excited at the prospect of the number of people that you're going to impact, not just through this process, but the experience you gain and then the things you go on to. So one of the things that I know with the production is so important is casting. So we have another individual here that, of course, we're a little biased about his abilities. And by the way, congratulations, Mr. Rice, on from graduating from Ayala. And I know you've got some great things ahead of you as well. But Caleb, if you could touch a little bit about casting and about Joey in particular, and then we'll let Joey give us some insights into what he wants to bring to his character.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I kind of wanted to give the show a facelift and bring it from this 90s gym to a modern, set reflecting the styles and appearances that are popular today in fashion and interior design. And I wanted to sort of really show off like this modernity through a show that's typically portrayed as in a particular time period and a particular look and particular costumes. And so I also knew that I had the luxury of flexible casting and that I had some ideas about what particular characters sound like. And besides that, the appearance, the height, a lot of things that people usually consider in casting, I didn't have to worry about. All I had to worry about was a certain sound to the characters I was looking for and a certain willingness to try things and to be open and to be explorative. And I think Joey was very surprised when I called him and with the role he got, because I didn't call him back for the role he got. I didn't hear him sing it. I didn't see him read it, but I didn't need to, because through the things that I gave Joey, they were very different characters and callback. And I knew that every other character in the show fell somewhere between the two. So if he could portray those polars, then that sort of mediary space was accessible to him. And with the other characters we cast, I knew watching the callbacks and the scenes that we read that there was a lot of chemistry between Joey and our Olive and our Chip and some of the other cast members. And so I was more than happy to go out on a limb and, give Joey essentially what is the lead male role of the show, even though I never saw him in that during the auditions process.
Wow. So Joey, you hear that. How do you respond?
So first of all, the role I got was Mr. Barfay, which I'm super happy with. I'm really glad I got the role, but I was surprised that I got it because again, I didn't read any lines for it. Big part of this, feel like I should mention, that was one of the most scariest callbacks I think I've ever had, ever.
Congratulations, Caleb.
Thank you. Thank you, Caleb. But I wasn't sure if I would get in at all, because there was there was like so much talent in that room. Like I just know that everyone had an equal chance of getting in. It was super scary. I feel like I'm super lucky to have gotten Barfay.
It wasn't luck, Joey.
If you need high-quality headshots or other professional photo work done, visit Xochineri Photography at fb.me/xneri-photos.
Well, I think lucky in the sense that it's, as you mentioned, it wasn't what you had expected. And so that's the one thing that I think is amazing about theater and in the casting process in general is there's things that come out of people that you maybe didn't expect. And it goes, wow, that person that's auditioning has an amazing trait that I have never really experienced before. I'd like to see it in this role. And so you as a director and then as an assistant director, Colin, you guys have to discuss about, I mean, we're lucky. We have got a talent pool like no other. We really do. And I think, I know a lot of it is the people that we've been talking about this entire conversation, the amount of mentoring that goes on and the love for theater and the love for the development, I think shows in the people that are involved in our theater, but where they go. I mean, you mentioned Kevin, who's teaching in New York. When we were in New York, we met someone that is on Broadway, and they've done many productions on our stage. And we know other people that are out there in this world on not just a professional level, but on an award-winning highest level. And that talent pool is just amazing. I'm sitting here looking at the cast list, and you have the fortune of a lot of amazing actors that are home for the summer from their college experience, that have many, many, many productions under their belt and involved in their schools, both high schools and colleges, in the arts, whether it's choir or whether it's theater. And I think you guys have the opportunity, obviously, and I love what I'm hearing. I'm very excited because I feel like you guys are going to take some chances that don't normally happen. And without spoiling too much, just what you're giving me, I'm thrilled. I'm excited. I can't wait. Not just because I know you and I know a lot of the cast and obviously my love for the theater, but that we've got this new generation of directors and producers and actors, and some have ties to our theater and some don't, and more coming in, and we're branching out and we're doing so much more. And I love the fact that we're sitting here having a conversation on a podcast that I'm a producer for, and now I'm acting as the host. Colin, who's the host, is an assistant director, and we're interviewing him. Joey's our engineer and producer, and he's acting. And where else does that happen? Very rarely. And then a director who's, I'm going to a competition, and in the middle of this, and that you have this confidence in your crew and cast to make it happen. I'm talking too much. You guys.
No, it's true though. While I was casting, I didn't even feel like I needed to consider conflicts. And there are some people in this cast that are in very large roles that are in other shows, and they have lots of conflicts. And I just know that between me, Colin, Sarah, that if them being absent was make or break for the show, then we didn't need to be in the director's chair. But because I have a lot of faith and I know the depth of knowledge and talent that I have between my production team, that I have that luxury to be flexible, that I can be gone for a quarter of essentially the rehearsal process. And I know at the end of it, the show's not going to be the worse for it. It's going to be the same whether I was there or not for those couple rehearsals. And so I am very, very, very spoiled with the people that came out and made casting difficult. And there's a lot of new people too. Like our Rona is from Pennsylvania. She goes to school in Pennsylvania. This is her first show, and she walked in, and it was like, just looking at how well she did during the callback, she was like, well, if she's in Lightning Thief and she has to leave every rehearsal halfway through, I know it's going to be fine. So I'm very, very spoiled to have this team and cast for my first show. It's made it very, very easy to be confident with.
Colin, I want to move back to you and back to the casting process, because in our last episode, we had a really good conversation with some of our friends, Liv and Em, down in Australia. And you'd mentioned a little bit about taking on this role as assistant director. And the one thing that I noticed specifically is your expression changed when you started talking about casting, as they were talking about how they cast their production of Little Women. And this is one thing that I see as an outsider. I've only been in a few productions, and I didn't really have to go through an audition, because a lot of male roles, especially in the adult theater, there's not as many male actors. So, people beg you to come. So they begged me to come, and I appreciate they did. And they, being in those two productions were two amazing highlights of my life. But I would like to hear a little bit, Colin, from your perspective of mostly being an actor and being the person that comes in on the auditions to now being on the other side. Could you talk a little bit about that?
That exact perspective has been the most interesting thing for me, stepping into this new sort of director's world, like coming from an actor's perspective and being able to see sort of the other side of the mirror, as it were, into seeing like what actually goes into making casting decisions, sort of putting like vocal parts together. And like, there's so many different ways we could have cast this show. There's so many different ways you could cast any show. And that's what makes it so interesting to like see the process, because it is something that becomes very personal based on who is in charge and based on what that vision is. It can change magnitudes. And so it is the most fascinating thing for me to be able to actually see what goes into, to know that there are so many different factors that go into it. It's so cool.
Well, I think the other thing that it can do too is it can change your perspective when you guys act again and go and audition. I think you go into it when you're on the other side and you're not you take the role personal, and of course you want it. You're there to audition. So you've already crossed the bridge of, okay, I'm going to try this, right? Because anytime you audition, you're putting yourself out on a ledge. There is a possibility that you may not get selected for something. And it's very easy for an actor to internalize that as a personal thing. But when you're on the other side, you realize it's not personal. It's what's my vision? What am I trying to put out there to an audience? Who's going to tell that story the best in this moment? And that's important as well, because every actor, every director, every assistant, every person out there is going through things every day of their life. And sometimes things are good and sometimes things aren't so good. And that can impact that. And you as directors and assistant directors and on that team, you have to kind of gauge that during those auditions and make those choices, especially with, as it seems, and we've talked on a couple of times, is you're going to take some chances on what we think of when we think of Spelling Bee and the way it's been presented so many other times before. Joey, you had mentioned obviously that this was the most challenging, it caused you some anxiety, we'll say, on that callback, but you did get called back and you did get selected for a role. And I would love to know a little bit more about, so now you maybe had a thought you would be playing a different character, but you're this new character. So what have you done since then to kind of prep yourself for this role?
So from what I know, our idea for Barfay is to make him more of a Star Wars nerd.
I might like Star Wars a little bit, but go ahead. Now I'm really excited.
So what I've done a little bit for that is I've been watching more like of those 2-hour long Star Wars critique videos to get into the mindset of someone who like critiques every little thing about Star Wars. Because like I've watched like I've watched all the stuff. I watch all like Disney Plus shows and all the movies, but like I'm kind of more of a like sit down, turn off brain and watch Star Wars. I don't really like have my brain on when I watch it that much.
You're just
So
trying to
like
enjoy it.
yeah, so like it's like I've been trying to get into the mind of like someone like think about how does this line up with the Star Wars lore, how and such.
Right. I love that. I absolutely love that. And that's just a small little nuance. And I think also it takes it to a modern time. So as you said, Caleb, you're trying to take something that might be caught in a certain decade or era in time and bring it forward, and something that people are going to relate to, right? Because there's going to be people that are going to watch your production, and that's going to be their favorite part is the Star Wars, because they maybe love it so much that they're like, I've never seen that before. Someone brought an aspect like that into this production. That's brilliant, you guys. That's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about your stage, your sound design, lighting design, costumes. You don't have to get too deep. You don't have to reveal too much, but I think that we talk about this a lot, and me coming from the tech side, so many productions that those are characters. So I'd love your thoughts, Caleb, going into this.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the costumes, that's one of the things, Joey mentioned, is that, Barfay will be this, as opposed to this sort of like geek with the half tucked button down shirt and these like weird khaki shorts that are black, and, like these, big brown shoes that, because I'm casting people who are between the ages of 14 and 22 in the year 2023, that's not like what people think of when they think of the nerdy geeky kid. They don't think of a kid who wears this half-tucked white button-down shirt. In fact, a lot of people, that's now the popular style.
I was just going to say, nowadays, being a nerd or being a geek that we used to think of as being negative, that's a larger sect of the population, and more people relate to it, especially with the technology that we have. So I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. And so to sort of like subvert that expectation, instead of wearing these big brown shoes, he'll be in these like oversized sneakers with these really high rise socks and Star Wars attire. And I'm glad to hear that Joey's looking into it, because again, with the improv, there's a lot of room to bring in some pop culture into it that's probably not been done many times, if at all. And similarly, we wanted to also reflect the fashion styles that people in that age group are wearing today. So I'll give another little, interpretation, but the character Logan Schwartz in Grubinier is typically depicted with this like sort of mismatch of like sort of girly things and like the braids. And while I think that's a reflection of Logan on the inside, outwards, I wanted to refresh it. And so I noticed that a lot of people in that age group are sort of gravitating towards these styles that are more representative of my parents' generation, the 70s and 80s. So Logan's actually going to be a reflection of the television show Brady Bunch. And so her costume and some of her mannerisms are going to be derived from that, because that's becoming a new popular thing again. And that carries through each of the characters. Most of them have a fresh interpretation like that. As for the set, one of the critiques that I have of a lot of interpretations of the show is that the sets feel stagnant, and that there's the set of bleachers that the kids are on, and that there's a table that the adults sit at, and there's just this rotation between the kids and the adults to a central microphone. And while that aspect will be present in the show, our bleachers actually won't be a traditional bleacher per se. There'll be these almost as if you had two small staircases wedged together, but then that can be separated, rearranged to make different levels and dynamics and depths to the space for the actors to play with that usually they don't get to in this type, in the spelling bee, because normally it's I go to the bleachers, to the mic, to the bleachers, to the mic. Now that's not going to always be the case. And so that also leads into, some of the tech is, I have my friend Anmol Valvekar, who is working as my artistic director. And, a lot of modern designs deal with this meeting between architecture and nature. And so our set, we'll have a lot of these meadow colors and natural elements to it as well. And so all of that wrapped together is in an attempt to bring a snapshot of what the world is like today for somebody between the ages of 14 and 20, which is, my cast. And so that's kind of what my goal was, is to provide this snapshot of popular culture as it exists today instead of what it existed as when the show was written.
That's fantastic. You guys, let's get some details. When do you open?
Oh, yeah. We open August 10th, which is a Thursday.
Okay. And then tell us about the run. Give us some of the dates, and it starts August 10th and goes to...
Yeah. So it starts August 10th. So that's the Thursday night. And then it runs through August 19th. And so the show will run the first weekend, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday matinee, Saturday evening. The Sunday matinee will be featuring the alternate lyrics for Chip's Lament. And so that show will be open for a more family-friendly audience.
Okay.
And then the next weekend, it will also run Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday matinee, Saturday night, concluding on August 19th.
And so with all of our productions listeners, obviously you can go to the Chino Community Theater, 7th Street Community Theater website. Also through all the socials, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, all you have to do is either look up Chino Community Children's Theater or CCCT Buzz, or go directly to our website, and all of those dates and tickets should be available. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. It was a great discussion. I know it's a flip of what we normally do. And Colin, thank you for letting me take over the host duties for a bit. I hope I did okay. Joey, thank you for engineering and being a guest at the same time. Caleb, thank you so much, not just for being with us, but for putting yourself out there. Being a director, you are the one in charge. And so everything that happens in an aspect, in a production, every aspect comes back to you. And it takes a certain personality. And so my hat's off to you for taking that step and sharing your not only love of the arts, but obviously your talent in the arts. And I say that. I say that with a lot of passion. And I so have enjoyed watching all three of you and all of your endeavors. And I look forward to the continued success of all three of you individually, specifically for our topic here with the Spelling Bee production that is coming up. Let's do it again. The 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. That'll be coming up, opening August 10th at our wonderful theater here in beautiful Chino, California. Thanks again, everyone. We appreciate your time, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
In today's day and age, it's more important than ever to remain informed and present in your community, which is why today we would like to highlight the Chino Champion local newspaper. Make sure you keep up with all of Chino's great local events like festivals, meetups, and live performances, virtual or otherwise. The Chino Champion. Thanks for tuning in. Please, subscribe to Steps to the Stage on your favorite podcast platform, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff. And scene.